This is my dad's car.
I froze mid-step. The unfamiliar voice cut through the quiet parking lot like a knife. My hand, which had been reaching for the door handle, stopped in midair. I turned slowly, my heart suddenly pounding. Standing before me was a young girl, maybe 13 or 14 years old. She looked up at me with the most unsettling calmness I'd ever seen in a child. There was no playfulness, no awkwardness, none of the fidgeting energy you'd expect from a teenager. "Excuse me?" I managed to say, my voice catching in my throat. She didn't blink. "This is my dad's car." "It is, isn't it?" I felt my mouth go dry. "Honey, I think you're confused. This is my husband's car. License plate 4885, right?" she said, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. My blood ran cold. I looked down at the plate. She was right. How could she possibly know that? "How do you know that number?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Because it's my dad's car," she repeated, with that same unnerving calm. My mind was racing. "What's your father's name?" "George Harrison." The name hit me like a punch to the stomach. George Harrison. My husband's name. The same name I'd said I do to 3 years ago, when we'd remarried. Both of us supposedly starting fresh after difficult first marriages. I forced a smile, though my hands were trembling. "Well, that's quite a coincidence. Lots of people have that name." But even as I said it, I knew. Deep down, I knew this was no coincidence. "When did you last see your dad?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "It's been a long time," she said quietly. "How long?" She didn't answer, just looked at me with those steady, knowing eyes. "Do you know his phone number?" I pressed. She nodded. "You can call him if you want." My hand shook as I pulled out my phone. "What's the number?" She rattled it off without hesitation. I stared at my phone screen, my vision blurring. It was George's number, his exact number. With trembling fingers, I dialed. Each ring felt like an eternity. The girl stood perfectly still, watching me. "Barbara?" George's voice came through, cheerful and unsuspecting. "Hey, where are you? Everything okay?" I took a deep breath, my eyes never leaving the girl. "You need to come here. Right now." There was a pause. "What's wrong?" "There's a girl here," I said slowly, "who says she's your daughter." The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear his breathing, quick and shallow. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I'll be right there." The line went dead. I looked at the girl, really looked at her. She hadn't moved, hadn't shown a hint of anxiety or fear, just stood there, waiting, as if she'd known exactly how this would all unfold. "What's your name?" I asked. "Sarah Harrison." "And George? He's really your father?" "I already told you. He's my dad." My head was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my husband, about our life together, was crumbling around me. 3 years of marriage, and he'd never mentioned a daughter, never even hinted at having a child. "Are you hungry?" I heard myself ask. It seemed like such an absurd question, given the circumstances, but I didn't know what else to say. "Yes," she said simply. I sent George a quick text I'm taking her to Miller's Diner. "Get here as fast as you can." "Come on," I said to Sarah. "Let's get you something to eat." She fell into step beside me without a word. As we walked through the cold parking lot, I kept stealing glances at her. She walked with purpose, her face revealing nothing. Whatever she was feeling, fear, hope, anger, it was locked away behind a wall I couldn't see through. The diner was nearly empty when we arrived. The smell of coffee and grilled food filled the air, but I couldn't even think about eating. We slid into a booth by the window, and I watched her face as she looked around. "What would you like?" I asked. "Anything is fine." I ordered 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup, though I doubted I could eat a bite. When the waitress left, an uncomfortable silence settled over our table. "So," I began carefully, "why are you looking for your father now?" Sarah's expression didn't change. "My grandfather is sick. He's in the hospital." My chest tightened. "I'm sorry to hear that. We can't afford the hospital bills," she continued in that same flat tone. I tried calling Dad, but he wouldn't answer. The words landed like stones in my stomach. George had been ignoring calls from his own daughter? "How did you know where to find the car?" "Grandpa told me." He gave me the license plate number, Dad's phone number, his name, everything. He said he couldn't protect me anymore, so I had to find my dad. I felt sick. This child had been sent on a mission to track down a father who'd apparently abandoned her, and I, his wife, had known nothing about any of it. "How did you get here?" I asked. "Bus," she said simply. "By yourself?" She nodded. Before we continue, if you're finding this story compelling, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now, let's see what happens when George arrives. My phone buzzed. A text from George, "I'm here." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Through the diner window, I could see him standing in the parking lot, his figure illuminated by the streetlight. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in his shoulders. I stood up slowly. "Your father's here." For the first time, I saw a flicker of emotion cross Sarah's face. Just a flash, and then it was gone. I walked outside, leaving Sarah at the table. The cold air hit me like a slap. George turned as I approached, and I saw something in his face I'd never seen before: raw fear. "Explain," I said, my voice like ice. "Explain this to me right now." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His hands were shaking. "Barbara, Don't," I cut him off. "Just tell me what's going on. Tell me why there's a 13-year-old girl in that diner. Who knows your phone number, your license plate, and is calling you Dad." Behind me, I heard the diner door open. George's eyes shifted past me, and his face went completely white. "Hi, Dad." Sarah's voice was quiet but clear in the night air. "It's been a while." George's hands trembled at his sides. I watched his face, the man I'd married, the man I thought I knew, and saw a stranger looking back at me. His eyes were fixed on Sarah, and in that moment, I saw everything I needed to know. This was real. This girl was his daughter. "Answer me," I said, my voice shaking now. "George, answer me right now. Who is she?" He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "She's my daughter." The world tilted. Even though I'd known somehow, I'd known from the moment Sarah spoke. Hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that shattered something inside me. "Your daughter," I repeated slowly. "You have a daughter, and in 3 years of marriage, you never thought to mention it? Barbara, please." "Please what?" My voice was rising now, and I didn't care who heard. "Please understand. Please forgive you for lying to me every single day we've been together." "I didn't mean to hide it," he said weakly. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You didn't mean to hide it?" "George, if you don't tell someone something, that is hiding it." "That's exactly what hiding is." Sarah stood a few feet away, watching us both. Her face was still calm, but I could see her hands clasped tightly together. "How old is she?" I demanded. 13. 13 years. I felt tears burning in my eyes. 13 years you've had a daughter, and I'm just finding out now because she tracked you down herself? George's face crumbled. "I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry, Barbara." "Sorry?" I could barely breathe. Do you know what I've been thinking these past 3 years? I thought we were building something new together. I thought we were starting a real family. But you already had a family, didn't you? You just. What? Forgot about them? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I demanded. Explain it to me, George. Because right now, I can't imagine any explanation that makes this okay. He looked at Sarah, then back at me. Can we go somewhere private to talk about this? No, I said firmly. Sarah deserves to hear this too. She's the one who's been living with your absence all these years. George's shoulders sagged. He looked older suddenly, defeated. It was 12 years ago, he began, his voice heavy. I was young, broke, and scared out of my mind. Sarah's mother had just left, and I was alone with a baby I couldn't afford to take care of. I waited, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. My father, Sarah's grandfather, he offered to raise her. He said I should go make something of myself, build a career, get stable. He said when I was ready, I could come back and be a real father to her. And you just agreed. I couldn't keep the disgust out of my voice. I thought it was the right thing to do. His voice cracked. I had nothing, Barbara. No job, no money, no future. I thought I was doing what was best for her. By abandoning her? By making sure she was taken care of. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd seen 100 times before. My father had the resources. He could give her a good home, food, education, everything I couldn't provide. And after, I pressed, after you got that stable job, after you built that career, why didn't you go back then? George's eyes were wet now. My father kept saying it wasn't the right time. He said Sarah was settled, that showing up would just confuse her. So I waited. I kept waiting for him to tell me it was okay to come back into her life. Sarah's voice cut through the tension like a knife. He never called you, did he? George looked at her, stricken. Sarah, Grandpa got sick 3 months ago, she continued, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. I tried calling you, over and over. You never answered. I didn't recognize the number, George said desperately. I thought it was spam. You let every call go to voicemail, Sarah said. Every single one. The accusation hung in the air. I looked at George, this man I'd promised to love and cherish, and felt something inside me break completely. You're right, George finally admitted, his voice barely audible. I saw the area code was from that town, and I knew. Part of me knew it might be about my father, or about Sarah, and I couldn't face it. So I just didn't answer. I felt sick to my stomach. You're a coward. He flinched as if I'd slapped him. I know. All this time, I said, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. I've been living with a coward who abandoned his own child and then lied to me about it. Barbara, please. Did anyone else know? I demanded. Your friends? Your family? Am I the only one who was kept in the dark? His silence was answer enough. I turned away from him, unable to look at his face anymore. My eyes found Sarah instead, this brave young girl who'd taken a bus alone to find a father who'd never wanted to be found. Where's your grandfather now? I asked her gently. County Hospital, she replied. Room 314. I made a decision then. Maybe it was impulsive. Maybe it was crazy. But I knew it was right. Take me to him, I said. George stepped forward. Barbara, wait. I held up a hand. You can come or not, George. I don't really care right now. But I'm going to see Sarah's grandfather, and I'm going to make sure this child isn't alone anymore. Sarah looked at me with those calm, knowing eyes. For the first time since we'd met, I saw a hint of something else there, maybe hope, maybe relief. Let's go, I said to her. As we walked to my car, I could feel George following behind us. Good. Let him follow. Let him see what it means to actually show up for someone. The drive to the hospital was silent. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window. In the rearview mirror, I could see George's headlights following us through the dark streets. My mind was reeling. Just a few hours ago, I'd been living what I thought was a happy life. Now everything was different. My marriage, my trust, my entire understanding of who George was, all of it, had been built on lies. But as I glanced at Sarah's profile in the darkness, I realized something else. This wasn't just about me and George anymore. This was about a child who'd been let down by the people who were supposed to protect her. And I'd be damned if I was going to let her down, too. The hospital corridor was quiet at this late hour. Our footsteps echoed on the linoleum floor as Sarah led the way to her grandfather's room. The fluorescent lights overhead cast everything in a harsh, clinical glow. Behind us, I could hear George's heavier footsteps, but I didn't turn around. Sarah stopped outside room 314. Her hand hovered over the door handle for just a moment, the first sign of hesitation I'd seen from her all evening. "It's okay," I said softly, touching her shoulder. "I'm here with you." She nodded and pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, just a small lamp beside the bed. In it lay an elderly man, his breathing shallow and labored. Even in sleep, I could see the resemblance to George, the same strong jawline, the same broad forehead. But where George's face showed the wear of guilt and avoidance, this man's face held only the peace of someone who'd fought hard and was now resting. Sarah walked to the bedside with quiet purpose. She pulled a chair close and sat down, her eyes never leaving her grandfather's face. I stood near the door, unsure of my place in this moment. George entered behind me, and I heard his sharp intake of breath when he saw his father. "Dad?" George whispered, moving toward the bed. The old man's eyes fluttered open. It took him a moment to focus, but when he did, his gaze went straight to George. A range of emotions crossed his weathered face: surprise, relief, and something that looked almost like disappointment. "You came!" the grandfather said, his voice raspy and weak. "Of course I came, Dad." George's voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't come sooner." The old man's eyes shifted to Sarah, and his expression softened completely. "My sweet girl, you found him." "I did, Grandpa," Sarah said, her voice still steady. "Just like you told me to. Good girl." He reached out a trembling hand, and Sarah took it gently. "You've always been such a good girl." I watched this scene unfold, feeling like an intruder. But then the grandfather's eyes found me. "And who's this?" he asked. George cleared his throat awkwardly. "This is Barbara. My wife." I saw the old man's eyebrows raise slightly. "Your wife," he repeated. "Well, does she know?" "She does now," I said, stepping forward. I wasn't sure what made me do it, but I moved to the other side of the bed, across from Sarah. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." He studied me for a long moment, his tired eyes surprisingly sharp. "You seem like a decent woman. Better than he deserves, probably." "Dad?" George started to protest. "Quiet!" the old man said, with more force than I would have thought possible given his condition. "I don't have much time left, and I'm not going to waste it on your excuses." The room fell silent. Even the heart monitor seemed to beep more quietly. The grandfather turned his attention back to me. "Barbara, is it?" "Yes, sir." "You didn't know about Sarah?" "No, sir. Not until a few hours ago." He nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something he'd already suspected. "That sounds like my son." Running from difficult things has always been his specialty. George's face flushed red, but he said nothing. Sarah is a wonderful child, the old man continued. Smart, strong, resilient. She's had to be, growing up without her father. He paused to catch his breath, and I could see how much this conversation was costing him. But she shouldn't have had to be that strong. She's just a child. She deserves better. I know, Dad, George said quietly. Do you? The old man's voice was sharp. Because knowing and doing are two very different things, son. I've been raising your daughter for 12 years. 12 years I've watched her wait for you to come back, to call, to show even the smallest bit of interest in her life. And you know what? She stopped waiting, stopped hoping. That's what you did to her. I felt tears prickling at my eyes. Sarah sat perfectly still, her hand still holding her grandfather's, her face betraying nothing. I told you to make something of yourself, the grandfather continued, his voice getting weaker. To build a life so you could come back and be a real father. But instead, you built a life that didn't include her at all. That's not fair, George said, his voice thick with emotion. You told me to stay away. You said it would confuse her if I suddenly showed up. I said it would confuse her if you showed up and then left again, the old man corrected. I never told you to forget about her entirely. I never told you to build a new family and pretend she didn't exist. George sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The grandfather turned to me again. Barbara, I need to ask you something. Of course. Sarah is going to need someone when I'm gone. Her mother's been out of the picture since she was a baby. George here. He shot his son a withering look. Well, we've established he's not exactly reliable. Will you look after her? The question caught me completely off guard. Mr. Harrison, I know I have no right to ask this of you, he said. You're a stranger to her, and she's a stranger to you. But I've got a good sense of people, and I can see you've got a kind heart. Sarah needs kindness. She needs someone who'll actually be there for her. I looked across the bed at Sarah. She was looking down at her lap now, her shoulders tense. For all her composure, I could see she was holding her breath, waiting for my answer. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I'll look after her. Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes meeting mine for the first time with undisguised emotion. Surprise, hope, and fear all mixed together. Barbara, George started. This isn't up for discussion, George, I said firmly. This is about Sarah, not about you or me or our marriage. This is about making sure this child has someone in her corner. The grandfather smiled a real smile despite his obvious pain. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. The rest of the visit was quieter. The old man drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes talking to Sarah about school or her friends, sometimes just holding her hand in silence. George sat in the corner, watching but saying little. I stayed by the bed. This stranger who'd somehow become part of a family drama I'd never known existed. But as I watched Sarah's brave face and heard her grandfather's labored breathing, I knew I'd made the right choice. Whatever happened with my marriage, whatever George had done or failed to do, I wasn't going to let this child face the world alone. 3 days later, Sarah's grandfather passed away peacefully in his sleep. Sarah was holding his hand when it happened. She didn't cry, not at first. She just sat there, her small hand wrapped around his still one, and watched as the monitor flatlined. I held her as the nurses came in, as they went through their procedures, as they gently suggested we step outside. She was stiff in my arms at first, resistant, like she'd forgotten how to let someone comfort her. But eventually, she relaxed against me, and I felt her whole body start to shake. It's okay, I whispered, stroking her hair. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel this. And then the dam broke. She sobbed into my shoulder, her whole body racked with grief she'd been holding back for who knows how long. Maybe since the first time George had walked away. Maybe since her mother left. Maybe since she'd realized that the people who were supposed to love her kept leaving. I held her tighter and let her cry. The funeral was small. A few of the grandfather's old friends, some neighbors who remembered him, and the three of us, George, Sarah, and me. We stood at the graveside under a gray sky that threatened rain but never delivered. The minister said kind words about a man I'd never known. George stood rigid beside me, his face a mask. Sarah stood on my other side, her hand in mine, squeezing so tight my fingers went numb. But I didn't let go. After it was over, after the last of the mourners had offered their condolences and drifted away, the three of us stood alone by the fresh grave. He loved you very much, I told Sarah softly. That much was clear to anyone who saw you together. He was all I had, she whispered. For so long, he was all I had. George made a choked sound beside us. Sarah, don't, she said, her voice sharp. Not here. Not now. He fell silent. We drove home to my and George's house, which was now Sarah's house too in heavy silence. I'd already set up the spare bedroom for her, tried to make it welcoming with fresh sheets and some books I'd picked up. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sarah thanked me politely and closed the door to her new room. George and I stood in the hallway, looking at each other across a chasm that seemed to have grown wider every day. We need to talk, I said finally. I know. We went downstairs to the kitchen. I made tea something to do with my hands while George sat at the table, looking older than I'd ever seen him look. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, setting a mug in front of him. What you did, George, you abandoned your daughter. And then you lied to me, every day, for 3 years. I know, he said quietly. I know there's no excuse for it. You're right. There isn't. I sat down across from him. But we have to figure out what happens now. Because whether I can forgive you or not, Sarah needs stability. She needs a home. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying that Sarah comes first now. Before you, before me, before our marriage. Her needs are what matter. And right now, she needs a father who actually acts like one, and she needs stability. So, you're not leaving? I don't know yet, I admitted. I'm furious with you. I'm hurt and betrayed, and I don't know if our marriage can survive this. But I'm not going to make Sarah deal with another abandonment while I figure that out. She's been through enough. George's eyes were wet. I don't deserve you. No, I agreed. You don't. But this isn't about what you deserve. It's about what Sarah deserves. He nodded, wiping at his eyes. I want to try. To be the father she needs. I know I can't make up for 12 years, but I want to try. Then try, I said. Show up. Be present. Answer when she calls. Don't make promises you can't keep. And for God's sake, be honest with her. I will, I promise. I wanted to believe him. Part of me desperately wanted to believe that people could change, that George could become the man Sarah needed. But I'd learned the hard way that wanting something doesn't make it true. We'll see, I said neutrally. Over the next few weeks, we settled into an uneasy routine. Sarah started at a new school. Her grandfather's district had been better, she informed me matter-of-factly. But this one would do. She was polite, helpful, and kept her room immaculately clean. She also kept her distance, especially from George. I watched him try. He'd ask about her day, offer to help with homework, suggest activities they could do together. She'd answer in monosyllables, accept help only when necessary, and politely decline his invitations. It was like watching someone try to befriend a cat who'd been mistreated. Every kind gesture was met with suspicion. One Saturday morning, about a month after the funeral, I found Sarah in the kitchen early, making herself breakfast. "You're up early," I observed, pouring myself coffee. "Couldn't sleep," she said, not looking up from her cereal. I sat down at the table across from her. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" She looked up warily. "Okay. Are you doing all right?" "I mean, I know you're not all right. That's a stupid question considering everything. But, are you managing?" She was quiet for a long moment, her spoon making slow circles in her bowl. "I miss him," she finally said. "Grandpa, I miss him a lot." "I know, sweetheart. And I'm angry." Her voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath. "I'm angry at Dad for not being there. I'm angry at Mom for leaving. I'm angry at Grandpa for dying, even though I know that's not fair." "It's completely fair," I assured her. "You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel however you feel." She looked at me with those two old eyes. "Why are you being so nice to me?" The question surprised me. "What do you mean?" "I ruined your life," she said bluntly. "I showed up and destroyed your marriage and forced my way into your home. Why don't you hate me?" My heart broke a little. "Oh, Sarah, you didn't ruin anything. George's lies ruined things, not you. You're just a kid who needed help, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you didn't ask for this." "For me?" "No," I admitted. "I didn't. But life has a way of giving us what we need, not what we ask for. And maybe I needed you as much as you needed me." She looked skeptical. "How could you possibly need me?" I thought about how to explain it. My first marriage ended badly. No kids, no real connection left by the end. When I married George, I thought I was getting a second chance at building a family. Turns out that was happening, just not the way I expected. I reached across the table and took her hand. "You made me braver, Sarah. You made me realize that family isn't just about blood or marriage certificates. It's about showing up for people who need you." For the first time since I'd met her, Sarah's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears, and she bit her lip hard, trying to hold them back. "It's okay," I said gently. "You don't always have to be so strong." "Grandpa always said I had to be strong," she whispered. "That I couldn't let people see when things hurt." "Your grandpa was wrong about that," I said firmly. "Being strong doesn't mean pretending you don't hurt. It means letting yourself feel the hurt and getting through it anyway. And sometimes it means letting other people help you carry it." The tears spilled over then, running down her cheeks, but she didn't pull her hand away from mine. "I don't know how to let people help me," she admitted. "That's okay," I said. "We'll figure it out together, one day at a time." She nodded, sniffling. Then, hesitantly, "Barbara?" "Yes." "Thank you for not sending me away." I squeezed her hand. "Never. You're stuck with me now, kiddo." A small smile tugged at her lips, the first real smile I'd seen from her. Behind us, I heard a throat clear. George stood in the doorway, his hair rumpled from sleep, looking uncertain about whether he was welcome in his own kitchen. Sarah tensed immediately, pulling her hand back. "I should get ready for school," she said, standing abruptly. "Sarah, wait," George started. But she was already gone, her footsteps quick on the stairs. George slumped into the chair she'd vacated. "She hates me." "She doesn't hate you," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. "She doesn't trust you. There's a difference." "How do I fix that?" "Time," I said. "And consistency. You show up every day, even when she pushes you away. You prove that you're not going anywhere this time." He nodded, looking miserable. "I'm trying, Barbara." "I really am." "I know," I said. And I did. I could see him trying, but I also knew that trying wasn't the same as succeeding, and Sarah wasn't obligated to accept his efforts just because he was making them. We had a long road ahead of us, all three of us. Spring arrived with a gentle warmth that seemed to thaw more than just the winter frost. The dogwood trees in our yard bloomed in clusters of white and pink, and the days grew longer, softer somehow. Sarah had been with us for 4 months now. 4 months of cautious steps forward and occasional steps back. 4 months of learning each other's rhythms and boundaries. 4 months of becoming something we'd never set out to be, a family. It wasn't always easy. There were hard days when Sarah would withdraw completely, when the weight of her losses seemed too much to bear. There were times when George would say exactly the wrong thing, and I'd watch Sarah's walls go up even higher. There were nights when I'd lie awake wondering if I'd made the right choice, if I was equipped to be what this child needed. But there were good days too, days when Sarah would forget to be guarded and would laugh at something silly on TV, days when she'd ask me for help with homework, not because she needed it, but because she wanted the company. Small moments that felt like victories. George was trying, really trying. He'd started going to therapy, working through his own issues with abandonment and fear. He read books about parenting teenagers. He showed up to every school event, every parent-teacher conference, even when Sarah barely acknowledged his presence. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Sarah started to soften. It happened in small ways first. She stopped leaving the room immediately when George entered. She started answering his questions with more than one word. Once, she even laughed at one of his jokes, though she tried to hide it. The real breakthrough came on a warm Saturday in May. I was in the garden, planting tomatoes, when I heard voices from the driveway. I looked up to see George teaching Sarah how to change a tire on her bike. "You have to put more muscle into it," he was saying. "Like this, see?" Sarah tried again, her face scrunched in concentration. The tire popped free, and she looked up with surprise and pleasure. "I did it!" "You did!" George's face lit up with pride. "Natural mechanic, just like your old man." Sarah rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "Don't get ahead of yourself. It's just a bike tire. Today a bike tire, tomorrow you'll be rebuilding car engines. Let's not get crazy." I watched them, my hands still in the dirt, and felt something shift in my chest. This was what I'd been waiting for, not perfection, not even full forgiveness, but connection. A moment of genuine warmth between father and daughter. That evening, the three of us sat on the back porch watching the sunset. It had become a sort of ritual dinner, then porch time if the weather was nice. Sarah usually brought a book and read while George and I talked, but today she set her book aside. "Can I ask you guys something?" she said. "Of course," I said. She looked at George. "Why did you really leave? And don't give me the answer about being young and poor. I want the real reason." George was quiet for a long moment. I could see him struggling, deciding whether to give her an easy answer or the truth. Finally, he took a deep breath. "I was scared," he said. "Your mother left right after you were born. One day she was there, the next day she was gone. And I was alone with this tiny baby who needed everything, and I had nothing to give. I was 23 years old, working 2 minimum wage jobs, living in a one-room apartment with mold on the walls, and I looked at you, so small and helpless, and I was terrified." Sarah listened without interrupting. "When Grandpa offered to take you, it felt like a lifeline. He had a real house, financial security, experience raising kids. He could give you everything I couldn't. So I told myself I was doing the right thing giving you up so you could have a better life. But you never came back," Sarah said quietly. No, George admitted. And that's where the fear really took over. The longer I stayed away, the harder it became to face what I'd done. I kept thinking I'd come back when I had more money, or a better job, or a house of my own. There was always some condition that had to be met first. And then years passed, and I convinced myself you were better off without me. That showing up would just hurt you more. That wasn't your choice to make, Sarah said, her voice steady but firm. You're right. It wasn't. I should have asked what you wanted. I should have been brave enough to be your dad, even when I felt like I was failing at it. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorrier than I can ever express. Sarah was quiet, processing. Then she asked, Do you want to be my dad now? Yes, George said immediately. More than anything. But I understand if you don't want that. I understand if I've lost that chance. I don't know what I want yet, Sarah said honestly. You hurt me. You left me. And that's not something I can just get over because you said sorry. I know, but she hesitated, then continued. I can see you're trying. And Barbara's helped me understand that people mess up, even parents. They mess up big, and sometimes they can't fix it completely, but they can try to do better. I felt a lump in my throat. So here's what I'm thinking, Sarah said. We start over, not pretending the past didn't happen, but not letting it be the only thing that defines us either. You keep being here, keep trying, and I'll try to let you in. Deal? George's eyes were wet. Deal. Sarah stood and picked up her book. I'm going to read in my room for a while. Barbara, are we still doing pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? Absolutely, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Cool. Night, guys. She headed inside, then paused at the door and looked back at George. Night, Dad? The door closed behind her, and George covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. I moved closer and put my hand on his shoulder. You okay? She called me Dad, he whispered. Did you hear that? She called me Dad. I heard. He looked up at me, his face wet with tears. I don't deserve this. Either of you. I don't deserve a second chance. Maybe not, I said gently. But you're getting one anyway. That's what grace is, getting what you don't deserve. The question is, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to be here, he said firmly. Every day, whatever she needs. Whatever you need. I'm not running anymore. I looked at my husband, really looked at him. He wasn't the man I'd married, not anymore. That man had been built on secrets and avoidance. This man, sitting here with tears on his face and determination in his eyes, was someone new, someone who'd been broken down and was trying to build himself back up better. Could I forgive him? I still wasn't sure. Could our marriage survive? That was an open question. But could we be a family, the three of us, in whatever form that took? I was starting to think maybe we could. Good, I said, because we're all in this together now, for better or worse. He took my hand, squeezed it gently, for better or worse. As the sun set fully and the stars began to appear, I thought about how strange life is, how you can wake up one day thinking you know exactly what your life looks like, and by the end of that day, everything can be different. 4 months ago, a girl appeared in a parking lot and turned my world upside down. She'd revealed truths I didn't want to know and forced me to make choices I'd never expected to face. But sitting there on the porch, knowing she was upstairs safe and starting to heal, knowing George was finally facing his demons, knowing we were all trying our best to become what each other needed, I couldn't regret it. Family isn't just blood. It isn't just marriage certificates or shared last names. It's the people you choose to show up for, the people you choose to love even when it's hard, the people you choose to become better for. Sarah was my family now, not because I'd given birth to her or because I'd known her all her life, but because when she needed someone, I'd chosen to be there. And in return, she'd given me something I'd been missing without even knowing it purpose, and the chance to be part of something bigger than my own small life. The porch light flickered on, warm and yellow in the growing dark. Through the window, I could see Sarah's silhouette in her room, reading in her favorite chair. George sat beside me, his hand still in mine, watching the same scene. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For not giving up. On her. On me. On us." I thought about that. "I'm not sure I've decided not to give up on us yet," I admitted. "We still have a lot to work through, you and I." "I know, but you're still here. That has to count for something." "It counts for Sarah," I said. "Everything counts for Sarah right now." "Fair enough." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "You're going to be an amazing mother to her." "I'm not trying to replace anyone," I said quickly. "I know, but you're mothering her anyway. It's one of the things I love most about you. You can't help but take care of people who need it." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the night deepen around us. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car passed on the street. Normal, everyday sounds of a normal, everyday life. But there was nothing normal about what we'd been through, or what we were building. This was something new, something fragile and precious and hard-won. Inside, Sarah turned off her light. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard the bathroom door close, then open again. Her bedroom door clicked shut. "She's settling in," George observed. "She is," I agreed. Slowly but surely. "Do you think she'll ever really forgive me?" I considered that. I think forgiveness isn't always a destination. Sometimes it's a journey. Some days she'll be closer to it, some days further away. The important thing is that you keep giving her reasons to take steps toward it. He nodded. "I can do that. I will do that. I know you will." And I did know it. Whatever George's faults, whatever mistakes he'd made, I'd seen the change in him these past months. I'd seen him wake up early to make Sarah breakfast before school, even though she rarely said thank you. I'd seen him sit through her school play, even though she only had 2 lines. I'd seen him cry in the shower when he thought no one could hear, mourning the years he'd lost. He was trying, truly, genuinely trying. And while that didn't erase the past, it did mean something for the future. "We should go in," I said finally, as the night grew cooler. "Early morning tomorrow." "Pancakes," George said with a slight smile. "Pancakes," I confirmed. We stood, gathered the empty glasses from the porch railing, and headed inside. George locked the door behind us while I turned off the porch light. We moved through the house, turning off lights, checking windows, the nightly routine of any family. At the top of the stairs, we paused outside Sarah's door. No light showed underneath. "Do you think she's really asleep?" George whispered. "Maybe. Or maybe she's reading with a flashlight under the covers." He smiled at that. "We should probably tell her that's bad for her eyes." "Probably," I agreed. "But not tonight. Tonight we let her have her small rebellion." He kissed my forehead, a gentle, grateful gesture. "Good night, Barbara." "Good night, George." In my own room, I changed into pajamas and slipped into bed. The house was quiet now, everyone in their own spaces, everyone safe. I thought about the journey we'd been on, from that shocking moment in the parking lot to this peaceful night. Life was strange, I thought. Strange and surprising and sometimes painful, but also full of unexpected grace. I'd lost the marriage I thought I had, but I'd gained a daughter I never expected. I'd lost my innocence about the man I'd married, But I'd gained a clearer understanding of what love really meant, not perfect people living perfect lives, but broken people trying to do better, choosing each other again and again despite the mess. Outside my window, the moon rose higher, casting silver light across the yard. The dogwood blooms glowed white in the darkness, beautiful and temporary, making the most of their brief season. Just like us, I thought, making the most of the time we had together, building something beautiful from broken pieces. And in the morning, there would be pancakes,